Welcome back. With dozens of Democratic House seats leaning Republican, some Democrats are fighting for re-election and openly opposing their leader, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Several say they will not support Pelosi for Speaker again if Democrats hold on to their majority in the House. In fact, Georgia Congressman Jim Marshall released this political ad. Take a look.
Georgia is a long way from San Francisco, and Jim Marshall is a long way from Nancy Pelosi. Jim Marshall doesn't support Nancy Pelosi. He voted the same as Republican leaders 65% of the time. Jim Marshall worked and voted against Pelosi's $1 trillion health care bill because we can't afford it.
Congressman Jim Marshall is a member of the Democratic Blue Dog Coalition, is joining us live. Congressman, good to have you here.
Thanks, Jamie. Happy to be here.
Tell us what's behind the ad. Why'd you do it, and what kind of reaction are you getting from Democrats?
Well, you know, one side or the other these days takes over, and we swing to extremes. And that's really unfortunate for the country. We need to find a moderate leadership, a centrist leadership, somebody who can pull us together. And I've been hopeful that we could do it with Speaker Pelosi. It just isn't happening. The health care bill, and there are other things as well, but the health care bill sort of demonstrates that. Awful lot of people thought this was a bad idea, and yet it got pushed through anyway. So I've just decided that we need to move to a different speaker, one that can pull us together. And also, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense for my opponent to be able to run against Pelosi instead of running against me. And so for those two reasons, I said I just figured I'd go ahead and make the announcement.
And reaction? Are you getting calls from your colleagues?
Well, I've gotten a few calls. I mean, a number of us have talked about this over a period of time, so there's no real surprise here. I'd been intending to do this, even if I didn't announce it. And there are a bunch of us who are concerned that we need to find some sort of moderate leadership that can pull people together. I would say American leadership instead of Democrat or Republican leadership.
You have anyone in mind, sir?
Pull the country together. Well, I love Ike Skelton. I don't know whether Ike would consider doing this, but he certainly is the kind of leadership that we could use. He's from the Show Me State, Missouri. He's the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and he is somebody who has successfully managed to pull together both sides in the Armed Services Committee to produce a committee bill that everybody votes for. And that's terribly important to the country. If we could do that as a Congress on more important issues and have everybody come together, you're not going to get the extremists. And we've got way too many extremists on both sides here.
Let me ask you, though, about bringing both sides together, Congressman. I don't want to run out of time. You serve on armed services, sure. You serve on agriculture, and you served our country and in the armed forces with valor. And you also consider yourself an expert on housing and banking. The economy is in very poor straits right now. How do you think you could bring both sides together if you don't support Nancy Pelosi? You have ideas of who you'd want to see in there. If the Democrats retain control, that's one thing. If they don't, another. Do you think someone can come in that you could get behind that could bring both sides together on those issues that are truly affecting Americans? I
do. There are quite a few members of the Democratic caucus who could do that. Republican caucus as well, but on the Republican side, there's such discipline, it's very difficult to move away from the extremists. On the Democratic side, there's less discipline, there's more openness, and I do think that there are quite a few members who could pull people together and find a middle, find reasonable solutions to the challenges that face us. And you're absolutely right. They are enormous at the moment. But we've got a bright future in front of us if we would just get our act together, and we've had a hard time doing it in recent years just because we're swinging from one side to the other. One extreme group to the other extreme group. We can't find the middle. Business can't plan. It's really unfortunate for the country.
As a Democrat, you voted, in, according to your ad, 65% of the time with Republicans. Do you feel pressure from the Democrats to change that?
No. My voting has been very consistent since I've been in Congress. And I've got good relationships on both sides of the aisle. And my voting is a little toward the Republican side right now on substantive issues. Normally it's been right in the middle, a little bit toward the Republican side, a little bit toward the Democratic side. Typically, though, I'm picking from yes and no on legislation that's not ideal because you can't go in the House right now. People don't go through a normal committee process where both sides have input and you cobble together a bill which reflects the views of both sides. It winds up being views of one side or the other side, and then you have to just pick and choose. All these bills have a lot of stuff in them that I don't agree with. And that's almost always the case when it's a controversial bill.
I think it's something that the American people and certainly voters are watching as well. Congressman, nice to meet you. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us this morning.
Yes, ma'am.